This is the fake real swing drill. You've probably noticed that when doing a fake swing like that, a shadow swing, a practice swing, where you just hold the disc like this and whoosh it, that it's much easier to have a good pull through, a good power pocket, a clean swing plane. And so we're going to use that to fake ourselves out, to trick ourselves into better form. And it's not just easier to have better form with these practice swings because of doing it at lower power. Even at higher power, it feels easier to keep the improved form. So we're going to practice committing to this fake swing, swinging out right away and trying to whoosh the disc, try to make ourselves believe we're just doing this fake swing, we're committing to it until we can get ourselves to, at the last moment, turn the disc out of that briefcase and transition into a real swing. Fake. Fake. Real. Just kidding, fake. Fake. Real. So I'm trying to commit to the feeling and the expectation that I'm going to whoosh the disc, but then, just kidding, I'm going to turn it out of briefcase, and that's going to let the disc spin and rip out of my hand and become a real swing. When you're practicing this for the first time, start with as low power as you need to in order to be able to commit to swinging out like this until the last moment. So for example, see, that was nose up because I waited so long and then I only turned it a little bit. So now I'm going to, but then turn it a little bit more aggressively, still going slow. There we go. That was more nose down. But once that is easier to do, now I will go up to a little bit of medium power. Whoosh. Whoosh. Fake whoosh. Boom. Boom, it's that easy. It's really important to do some of these in extra hyzer posture because a lot of people, as they're coming out of the pocket, swinging out like this, and they turn it out of briefcase, instead of just doing that with their arm, they do it with their whole body and yank into anny. Push the butt back, hinge at the hip, engage the core so you're not arching your lower back, top of the disc facing your chest, do a little coil like this already in the pocket, swing, feel the whoosh. We're staying in this hyzer posture. We're gonna just turn it out of the disc, turn it out of the briefcase. Always be throwing upwards if you want to be working on improving your nose down as well. So you can find a fence or something using discs you don't care about, or a net, and throw over it. Stay in hyzer posture. So 1030 is here in hyzer. 1030 is also there, but it feels more downwards. Combine this with head positioning drill, keep looking back, shadow swing, real swing.
You can also combine this with rear arm anchoring drills and other drills.
Short approach to this tree here. It is one of the biggest reasons why doing shadow swings like this make it so much easier to have better form, is because people are intuitively switching their style to more of a swing, just flowing through this swinging motion rather than trying to, you know, like pull the disc and worrying about spinning it and all the complications that come with this shape and how you have to grip it or to actually throw it. And I've seen this multiple times with a paddle, and they just intuitively, having this different thing in their hand, do a flowing swing and their form looks way better. Now you may be thinking, isn't this just reaching back on briefcase? No, just reaching back on briefcase is just reaching back on briefcase. That's why so many people who try reaching back on briefcase just immediately revert into doing this during the pull through. This is much more focused on what you're doing during the pull through. Now this will likely make a lot of people throw more nose up, because this, holding the disc in briefcase, I'm throwing this way, that's nose up. Turning it out of briefcase is how you get it nose down. Turning it into briefcase is how you get nose up. So people that are not used to this will have the disc very nose up here, and as they try to turn it out, they won't do enough of it and they'll throw more nose up. But this will help you throw more nose down if you stick with it, getting used to this timing of when you turn it out.
A little bit before and through the hit. If you do it too early, you'll run out of range of motion and you won't be able to do it during the hit, and you'll throw nose up.
And how much you turn it out of briefcase is exactly proportional to how much nose down you get. That's why I can throw like negative 20 degrees nose down at max power. I've practiced this motion a lot, and I can do it really hard and powerfully at the end. But you need to work your way up to that so that you don't hurt your shoulder or your elbow when it's not used to doing these new motions at higher power. I would also recommend doing some of these where you start already in the pocket like this.
Isolating practice to the out-of-pocket motion.
With the top of the disc facing your chest, whether you're on Annie posture or hyzer posture. The disc orientation is changing relative to the ground, but it's staying the same relative to my chest. Doing a little coil like this, whoosh out. I also recommend setting up with the wrist halfway curled, because that wrist curl is going to help you feel how, as I start turning it out of briefcase, it feels more natural that I'm going to get this wrist uncurling to transition into actually spinning the disc and turning it into an actual throw. But be careful about curling your wrist too much or too hard when you're doing this drill with a full reach back. It's harder to fully extend and stretch your arm while your wrist is kind of tightly curled like this.
I also started to like not curling the wrist in the reach back in this drill and then dynamically curling the wrist as the swing is starting, but that could be more complicated for some people, so I recommend the half wrist curl.
Now I'd recommend not worrying about trying to get to a deep pocket while doing this. Just focus on swinging out away from your chest. When you're swinging with less power, it's
easier to over-exaggerate swinging out with a straighter arm.
So you'll have to relax it a little bit so that the elbow, as you swing out, the elbow will still bend. But as you increase your power, you can feel like you're just trying to swing out straight away powerfully, and you won't be able to stop the elbow from bending. So you'll still get bent into a power pocket. If you try to focus on getting a deep pocket, you're going to probably switch from a swing style into trying to drag it across the chest and revert into externally rotating and dipping your elbow. All right, so in those throws I tested with this, I noticed I had a pretty good looking pocket, better than usual lately. Nice, elbow up, and from the back you get this kind of look where it's like the swing is starting and then it's just like pop. It looks like the elbow just kind of pops out in front of the chest, which is an effect that I see when
things are working well.
And from the side point of view, tech disc throw, you can see I get to a deeper pocket. even though I'm not thinking about or trying to drive the elbow across the chest, even though it's happening. And it seems a little counterintuitive. How can you get to a deep pocket when the cue is just kind of like swing out right away? Because even if the elbow, gets bent, it seems logical that you're going to be more shallow and then coming out right after that. Some of this is because my prior work on a deep pocket has ingrained some muscle memory that's automatically kicking in. But when watching these throws and trying to connect what I'm seeing with a deep pocket and what I'm feeling, which is not trying to get a deep pocket and just trying to swing out, kind of made me think about it in this way. I'm not sure if it totally makes sense. So when you start rotating and you're trying to swing out, your arm gets heavier, the disc gets heavier, and the rotation is kind of
Pushing against your arm.
trying to swing out as if there's a wall here. And so the elbow gets bent. The more powerfully you rotate, the harder it is to keep the elbow straight. Kind of feels like I'm trying to swing out, but my hand is being stopped and it can't swing out. I still am pushing this way and the elbow gets bent, and that's when you see from the back view just kind of pop out like this. And as that's happening, there's like a little bit of my hand sliding because it can't go that way, but pushing that way and the elbow bending that way just kind of makes it slide. My hand can't go, elbow gets bent, and that's a deep pocket. So hand gets stopped, still pushing it into the wall, elbow gets bent, and the hand slid. When focusing on swinging out, some people have horizontal collapse. Some of that is just not being used to. As you're rotating, if you're thinking about swinging out, you rotate and the arm is activating late to swing out. It needs to be immediate so that the arm is powerfully engaged to handle that initial rotational kind of like punch. At the start of the swing, start turning the disc that way. It makes you want to drop your elbow. External shoulder rotation has to lower the elbow to keep the hand at the same height, whereas internal shoulder rotation raises the elbow to keep the hand at the same height. So it's natural for elbow dip and elbow rise with shoulder rotation when the elbow's bent. It's extended, you could do that rotation without any temptation for the elbow to go up or down. And again, that's why we don't want to turn the disc out of briefcase until later, because once we're coming out of the pocket, the elbow's already extending, so it's a lot easier to turn the disc out of briefcase without it dropping the elbow. You can use a paddle as well to work on this. One like this that's solid, so it'll create more of a whoosh through the air. This is briefcase with a paddle, and if I keep it on briefcase, I'm just slicing through the air and I'm not going to get a whoosh. And so you can practice the timing of turning it out of briefcase to get a whoosh, and feel and hear where that whoosh happens around that 10:30 o'clock. If I turn it out too late, I'm slicing through the air and I'm not going to get as much of a whoosh. Gonna play a whole round with this cue.
This is the golden triangle, looking at elbow height relative to upper body angle relative to disc briefcase angle. It is so common among pros because it helps keep your elbow up.